You're live. You're live. You might be live. It says you're live. You're live. You're live. Live at not quite 5. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. Well, for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, or if you're more likely a repeat viewer, because I have so few of those who watch these interior videos, decorating theme, that is. I guess if you thought you were going to tune in and see all Christmassy stuff, no, not yet. It's not even Thanksgiving yet. But since everybody else is already doing videos about Christmas stuff, and we are technically less than a month away, or exactly a month away. So yes, I still have my autumn decor in play. And last year I did kind of a video celebrating when I decorated the Sailor Man and that kind of thing. I don't know if I'll do that during the live feed. If I do a live feed, I know this is technically a live feed, but I mean a Q&A feed in a couple days. I'm posting this just to get it over with because it's Thanksgiving weekend. So if nobody watches it, par for the course. But this is technically a rebuttal reaction video to 3 other videos, and I put in the description that I might do also a rebuttal to the Iron Snail Sweater video, so hence my glorious autumn sweater, which again, not Christmas theme or other holiday, bearing the winter months or winter solstice, or this one has ducks. There was different colors, I suppose, offered that I never could figure out how to order. So I ended up with the beige one. So not a super Christmassy, ugly sweater. I don't think this is an ugly pattern anyway. I think it's more of a play on the Norwegian style or whatever. So anyway, so here we are in part 1. I shall try to recall when to delineate the parts. So for those of you who are bored and want to scroll ahead, this probably isn't the video where much scrolling will do you much good. But one segment, as I said, we'll start with the Ralph Lauren stuff, which could take a little while. And then we'll talk about the Scottish stuff. Spoiler alert, a lot of this Ralph Lauren stuff is taken directly from Scottish stuff, was the point of that video. And then the final bit, video I was going to do separately that kind of got, it's just, I don't know, I didn't think anybody would really watch it. So I'm going to tack that on to the end of this and go and do, what wouldn't fit in the title was English countryside decoration. So it's not really Christmas theme, but it's stuff I've maybe touched on before in cottagecore content or whatever. And in that vein, we can throw in a nice little Irish poem that I didn't write later. So so this part, I'm just like reading my comments back from their video, because of course I can't just like, restate somebody else's video entirely. I mean, sometimes I'll go more point for point when it's the cost per wear analysis kind of thing and the capsule wardrobe kind of thing. So if you've seen those videos in the lifestyle choices or whatever playlist, where this video will also appear among the other couple playlists. So one other video, though, it was different gal. They were calling the autumn into winter the Burr months, because they end with Burr. So September, October, and then November being the first real Burr month. In here, not even, we had a little bit of rain, but now it's warmed pretty much right back up. So December might be a Burr month. I don't know. Usually we don't get January Burr, or we don't get the Burr in January when the Burr actually occurs, is what I'm trying to say. So I started out just making fun of, I enjoy her videos. I paused one right now to get this over with, record this in a timely manner before everyone goes to bed, or what, maybe somebody will watch it tomorrow. Who knows? We really must get you to pronounce the T more in tartan. So she's not saying, she says entire correctly, the word enough, and tea tray instead of tea tray. But there's this, I don't know, trend of that say it tartan or curtains, and says, don't shoot me or whatever. I'm from the South. But I'll be talking about tartan again in a minute, obviously relating to Scottish Christmas, but also in this video. I'll come back to that in a second. It's just a joke. So then she was saying she wanted to the Ralph Lauren seems to kind of cover many aesthetics, like dark academia and other things kind of can all overlap. Then I, proudly replied, I resemble many aesthetics, which is, my own rhetorical statement, I guess. And then here's a broad, we'll come back to it. Or actually, this is kind of the point by point as much as I do, I guess I should say. Because I'm moving that down. What? Okay, the computer doesn't want to cooperate is the thing. Why are you doing this to me? Okay, sorry. I'm usually not this disorganized, but I guess I kind of am. That's weird. Oh, I see where that happened. Okay. I see what happened. I did that to myself, I guess. Sorry. Sometimes I leave the room entirely and I chop that bit out, but this I'm not chopping out because it would take too long to bother for the amount of time wasted. Anyway, so one of the recommendations was to find tartan cloth, especially going to like thrift stores and getting tartan flannel shirts and that kind of thing to repurpose them into pillowcases or whatever. I have some old tartan shirts lying around that I have not DIY'd because I keep expecting someone to come along and pay me way more than they may be worth for the, for the fact that they are tartan fabric and mostly cotton, by the way, instead of poly, ester or poly blend. I think one, because, okay, well, let's look at the thumbnail again. There's a tartan background. It's kind of small. I don't know if the border will show through, but a lot of the Ralph Lauren stuff is tartans, but not necessarily always using the Christmas tartan, the Red Stewart or Cunningham, I think being the most overt one. Some others. I've mentioned all this before, I think, in some holiday kilt guide or some other flannel shirt video or something. Some tartans is more holiday than others. Most are not. Like I said, I'm going to talk about this again in a minute. But also you can get some old kilts or school skirts maybe, or school style skirts that would be a higher yield of fabric amount than a discarded shirt that likely has fading or staining in some crucial areas, etc. But of course now Joann's is gone, so you'll find less fabric by the yard options floating around. But of course, those were mostly polyester anyway. And then one of the things that she said was a good holiday thing was vintage tins for, storing your little Q-tips or whatever. I didn't get I didn't get the Snoopy one this year. I got the Halloween one, so I still haven't eaten the chocolate yet. But I do have some tins that may not necessarily be vintage. And again, I showed all this stuff off last year in the decorating video. How much these resemble the Ralph Lauren ones, I don't exactly know. Again, I didn't bring in all my usual kind of stuff. You know, when you see it redecorated, if you tune in, you'll see the stuff I'm talking about, or you can go back and watch that video from whatever it was. I'll try and put the link in the description. Am I missing the thing? Yeah, this is about it. I have other tins that are in the garage that have the stuff in them. They're not in here now. Sorry for that delay. Okay. But yeah, certain kind of tins. This is definitely not vintage, but it is very Christmassy. So, you know, will it blend in, you know, thrown on a shelf somewhere with a bunch of other junk? Sure, why not? Is it Ralph Lauren? I don't know. That's another distinction, though, is this video is about Ralph Lauren on a budget. So finding stuff at thrift stores that may resemble the Ralph Lauren without being the actual Ralph Lauren was kind of the point of the thing. And she had mostly come up empty-handed. So I'm batting 1,000 or whatever, right? Okay. So yeah, like I said, vintage. And vintage is kind of a meaningless term almost at this point, because the 80s can be considered vintage, because Ralph Lauren came out in the 80s. But of course, the whole point of Ralph Lauren in the 80s was throwback to the 40s or 50s, maybe, or some other earlier timeless time. But I don't think Ralph Lauren was terribly interested in like Art Deco in the 20s and all that. I think it was more meant to be the 50s and 60s even than the 40s. But what was going on in the 60s was, again, kind of a transitional time when the vintage there was, you know, considered old hat and, hey, Charlie Brown, go get an aluminum Christmas tree and paint it pink, right? Yeah. So how many people were painting aluminum trees pink in 1965? I don't know, but before I was born, so, you know, I can only speculate. But if we're throwing back to the 60s, we might not be getting the Ralph Lauren in experience either, or inspired experience. But at the thrift store or other places, Hobby Lobbies and things, I was saying that, you know, after the holiday season, the Christmas section might be even more reduced prices than your budget is, you know, giving you now. But of course, it will also likely be picked through pretty hard by then, and you'll find even less than she did this time, or maybe, unless, of course, a lot of people just dump their stuff to the thrift store and buy all new stuff next year, in which case you might find some good stuff that isn't totally damaged or destroyed or whatever. Again, though, the problem, you know, why did they donate this tablecloth? Because it is a huge gravy stain, you know, stuff like that. So then there's a long list here. So I'm kind of doing this out of order. So there was a look for list. And so let me go ahead and save that for a minute. So on the look for list, skipping ahead, and then I'll go back to this other chunk that ties into the thumbnail. T-shirt, patterns and scarves, long and short sleeve, and jackets. So again, sourcing fabric. Ribbons and bows, brass bells. Again, stuff you might find easier at someplace like Hobby Lobby than a thrift store. So you might have to pay a little bit more. Mistletoe, again, here we're talking about the fake mistletoe, not the real mistletoe, although real mistletoe would look better. But you're not going to find real mistletoe at a thrift store because it's a plant. A bow tree topper versus maybe more traditional angel or star. Hurricane candle holders. All the women are going crazy for this. I've never seen anybody with it in real life. but hurricane candle holder. It's like glassware and other miscellaneous glassware and other miscellaneous candelabra and candle tapers, preferably in red, green, or white, or a combination thereof. One of the colors they kept saying was to add blue, because a lot of the tartans have blue, but they didn't say anything about blue candles. That, of course, could be a different holiday. I'm not sure what. Sometimes they line up, and usually they don't. I think usually Hanukkah comes earlier in December most of the time. And all that. But obviously totally blue and white, not Christmassy colors at all. So I don't usually try and explain how to merge the two things. You know, people can navigate that their own way. Because I'm, like I said, I'm trying to stick with the Ralph Lauren aspect of this here. So candle tapers, red, green, white. Pillar candles, I'm not sure what that is exactly. A pillar candle. I hope you didn't just hear my stomach. Right. Crystal glassware just being a nice, elegant choice for other applications. So finding it around the holidays or needing it around the holidays, you know, might be the kind of thing you want to just get when you see it. And then have it to use it instead of trying to just shop for it now. I need it for the holidays. It's like, not really. I mean, if you don't already use it, then it elevates, but it's not super essential because, again, people are using it to eat and drink. It's not necessarily part of your decor. Nickel goblet vases. Again, I'm not sure what a goblet vase is exactly. Is it like a bigger than a beer stein? I'm not sure. Oversized floral arrangements, and she was saying that just even bare sticks can work as a bundle for this. Although to me, that's a little more Halloween or Thanksgiving even. I'm not sure about how it would work in the bare sticks. Magnolias, roses, garland, wreath, sprigs. Again, this makes a little more sense to me than bare sticks. Pine cones. Pine cones doesn't really say Christmas to me, but a lot of the other women are saying pine cones, even that aren't talking about Ralph Lauren. So, okay, sure, I guess. Red berries. Yes, red berries. That's on, point. Although, again, we're mostly talking plastic red berries here, not real red berries. That kind of thing. And the holly thing. I'll come back to that. Again, the wreaths. The one woman was, I'm not doing a rebuttal of her thing at all, but she was designing her own wreaths using the pre-existing things that you can get at the places like Hobby Lobby again. So I guess if you're going to do a Ralph Lauren style wreath, maybe then that you could do that from scratch. Though I assume many people would just buy the yellow bean ones or something. Snow globes and other miscellaneous kind of knickknacks, which is, again, going back to this, how traditional do they look? Do they look kind of cheesy, like post-90s, or do they look a little more vintage or antique-y or old-fashioned or whatever? Antique, that's one of those words that I forgot to put in the description there. I'll have to remind myself. Teddy bears, that's a Ralph Lauren thing, number 101. Nobody else is really the teddy bears thing. One of the things she showed was a Germany plate dish, because it was just like, yeah, this isn't holiday at all, but it's kind of decorative and it could be festive without being Ralph Lauren, and music boxes, which of course is like an elevated version of a tin, because it's like a tin you open and it makes noise. Although there's greeting cards, I suppose you could tape the greeting card into the tin, and then when you pulled open the tin, it would open the card, and then the music might play. There's my DIY suggestion: is figure out how to jury rig something like that as a joke. Okay. Then, as I said in the, I was skipping that. I'll skip that again. Then we'll come back to that. Croquet. Then she started to get into stuff that can be a little hit or miss based on geography. Croquet set, wooden skis, a sled, not a sleigh. A sleigh is a big thing that's drawn by horses that you can't just stand up in your corner. Ornaments, obviously, again, if you go, depends on what year you, because if you go in the 70s and collect ornaments, they're all going to be miserable crap that you don't want now. Tree skirt, this was not specified as being tartan, but could be tartan. Again, if you're going to take a real skirt, you can just make it into a tree skirt and you'd already have a tartan pattern. Table runner, again, you could open up a skirt and it might be long enough to turn into something like that, or you might have to sew some ends together, hem the thing in a different way, cut off some pleats or however that works out. Tablecloth, again, doesn't have to be tartan, could be solid with tartan accents. She had showed paper plates, I think, that come in tartan. Again, even if you're not making them out of old shirts, pillowcases. Here we're talking either Christmas colors like red and green or tartan specifically. Throw blankets, again, tartan being a big thing that you could find there, although the wool ones can be a bit pricey. They're probably around 200 or so now. You might find some on sale, but not necessarily in the patterns you want. The pattern I got, I guess I should have brought it in. Anybody want to wait for 5 seconds while I run to the other room? But it's Buchanan Ancient or whatever. So it's a little bit more orangey, a little bit more gray than bright blue, and blue, again, not really being the Christmas color. Stockings, of course, can be tartan, but typically we're finding them in red and white, or red and white stripes, or some kind of design, Again, how vintage, how old school do you want it to look? Does it have the Santa Sherpa fleece at the top and then the red, and it looks more like the hat instead of an actual sock, whatever. Tartan lampshades was a DIY thing that was recommended. I've not tried that, and I'm lazy. I probably never will. So then the last thing that wasn't the last thing that I moved down to the last thing, or for now, horse figurines, equestrian accents, trophies, and horse artwork had kind of its own section that, again, was my thumbnail. Clearly, she means equestrian cup-looking trophies, more as the ones pictured than the Little League baseball or the bowling league kind, right, where there's a little guy on the top. Although maybe you could decorate the little golf guy to look like Santa atop on some marble perch, or like it could be a chimney, right? You can have fun with trophies that way, but that's not what Ralph Lauren or she had in mind. And then on my own personal note, I kind of hate wreaths and candles. When I was young, my mom had this one kind of dark red tablecloth that we used every year. That, it's functional, I guess. It was probably polyester, and you could throw it in the washing machine after the gravy was spilled. And then in the middle, there was always this plastic wreath holly centerpiece with this fat red candle that was, yay tall and yay wide. I absolutely hated that thing. I'm so glad it's gone. I think part of it was just the fact that it was plastic. It looked plastic. But that was the green on top of the red, and then with the red. So it was very color coordinated. And speaking of which, most tartans are not red-based, neigh. So this is where I would suggest to avoid much of the blue and brown tartans if you don't really know what you're doing when you're decorating. If you notice that in a lot of the photos that were referenced, some of the blue shown is actually the background wall color and not the actual decoration elements and things, knickknacks and such. That was not actually a ton of blue. I mean, here there's one little blue M&M guy, and this is blue. But again, I don't know how representative this is of Ralph Lauren, or where this came from, or if it was cookies or what. The Snoopy one, the more newer Snoopy one, is blue, but I didn't get it, and I don't know if I will. because I don't know how many Charlie Brown tins I really need right now. And then the other tin I had was red, but I didn't bring it in, like I said. So sorry, can't help you. Anyway, yeah, you don't usually find like the old traditional tinsel wreath garland thingies for the tree. I don't remember ever seeing those in blue. I remember we had red, green, and gold, and none of them were long enough to really do a thing with. That's why we had 3 of them, and so they didn't really complement each other that well. I think we would have done better if we had did like green and gold or red and gold or something, and left out one of the colors, or just used one, or just used the gold and let the tree be the green. I don't know, something. But it was shiny, so it was supposed to be, you know, wintry. And we never did the tinsel correctly. I've seen it where if you do the tinsel correctly, it does have a nice effect. But I don't even know if you can buy strand tinsel anymore. I doubt anybody uses it at all. But that is very throwbacky if you want to be 100% legit. And of course, that stuff, though, it was, again, you'd have to be able to find it because it was stuff that got most discarded it. You didn't reclaim all the little bits of tinsel the following year. So when tinsel got phased out, we just ran out of it and never had it again. Whereas the garlands we had for years. Decoration thing. So yeah, so this photo effect of the blue, the navy blue, is just to give the catalog image more pop than one may achieve with your dingy walls at home. These ones being unpainted. Without thoroughly refreshing, you know, your entire space or whatever. Many whom would prefer a less cluttered version with less knickknacks and thing, etc. The Ralph Lauren is definitely not a minimalist Christmas. It's definitely decorating for impact, using elements. So I agree there. It's just, if you're on a budget, getting all those elements to make your house look like that catalog photo might be a bit of a stretch. A bit tricky, not impossible, and, you know, it's temporary. So if you make a mistake with something, it's only for a couple weeks. Do it better next year, whatever. So like I said, kind of all the proper dagnabbit part 2. So following off of that, we come to the Scottish Christmas video, wherein again the argument is that Ralph Lauren and Scottish Christmas are very similar, or very piggybacked, or very whatever. English country also being technically related to this. So again, like I said, I'll tack that on. That'll be part 3 for now. So in this video, I didn't really have much to argue with her about because, you know, she was just kind of restating stuff. This was a different woman who was, she had done, you know, a couple different videos. And so in one of them, she was saying, well, I already kind of talked about this elsewhere maybe or whatever. But she started talking about tartan again. And so here, the history of tartan was kind of given. That I mean, I've gone into it a little bit in probably at least one of my kilt videos, and I did that whole overview of the different mills in the one video. So if you're actively shopping for fabric, that's one that you might want to search out to get an idea. Most of the familial tartan associations actually only goes back to the early 1800s, not the early 1600s. But the larger clans make some claims now, but often from more dubious than reliable. Much of the clan tartan thing was marketing and for when the king visited. And most of the common patterns aren't red-based still for holiday use. Again, Cunningham and Stuart being probably, you know, a couple obvious ones. Stuart maybe the still most popular one. Like I said, I caution use less blue as in catalog photos because a lot of them were showing black watch, and it's like, okay, all that blue is not Christmassy if you don't pull it off. You know, it's blue. Mostly this is a black background color, such as wallpaper or some furniture piece or some such item, and not the actual holiday item featured, right? Just to go off on a tangent here where it's more appropriate than earlier when I was talking about tartan. Like the Fraser tartan, the Fraser red tartan is based on a painting of a guy wearing a full outfit in that tartan. But was that actually the clan's tartan, or was that just his outfit that he had? We don't know. But the clan says, well, that's the one he was wearing. That looks like it must have been the clan tartan. That's the one we're mostly going to go with. Okay, well, your clan chief's allowed to decide whatever he wants in that regard. So rubber stamped, moved on. But whether or not that was actually an official Fraser tartan in the 1800s or the 1700s rather, who knows? Likely some of them did, though, because in the one thing in the Culloden battle memoirs or notes or whatever, the one guy had said he saw the Campbells in their colors advancing, and so we know at least the Campbells all wore that color already by 1745. Okay, so that's well before or 45, 43, whatever year that was. So that's well before the visit of the king, though, in 1804 or whatever it was, 1810, somewhere in the early 1800s, when Sir Walter Scott made it popular and all that. So anyway, total tangent, but might as well get it in while we're talking about this stuff, so you can feel like I used to know all these dates a little better off the top of my head, but I don't remember now. That doesn't really matter. You get the picture. Okay. But also, importantly, there's 6 or 8 of them. I think it's 8, but some of them are not variants, but when a clan has more than one set, like Stuart, there's 2 or 3 different Stuart ones. But there's 6 or 8 of them that have direct military usage. Gordon, Stuart, Blackwatch, again, which is technically Campbell, even though they've changed the color set from the military to the clan. One's the light blue and one's the dark blue. Mackenzie's another one. Mackenzie's basically based on Blackwatch or whatever. Anyway, so that's, again, where you have a tartan that's not going to be mostly red, whereas the Stuart Hunting is mostly green, but the Stuart Royal is the famous red one, and then the Stuart Dress is the white one with the back, which I don't have that shirt in here either. Okay. You'd think I'd have it right here. Well, watch my flannel guide videos and you'll see it. But anyway, yes, Stuart is. I wonder if there's any. I don't know how much this is like Ralph Lauren, but there might be tartan in here. Santas and things. I was going to kind of go through these catalogs and do a. See, I think these people are kind of copying the original Ralph Lauren idea. I can't really see that because I have my notes on the screen, but I'm not trying to advertise either company. I'm just trying to see if there's Paddington and the Queen or something. Still not the tartan. Still not the tartan, but this is what I'm talking about. I don't think stuff like this is very Ralph Lauren, but maybe borderline. Whereas these some of the stuff's a little bit cutesy, and I think he's guilty of that. Whereas this kind of thing is a little less, slightly less cutesy, but you got the snow globe instead of the music box. I was really, really hoping to see some tartan by now, but I'm not seeing it. Whereas something like this with more gold and religious-y. Not red and green much at all. A little bit of green, hints of green. Okay, this is just... Oh, wait, there it is. There we go. Okay, finally. Although you can barely see it if I give... like, that's the red Stuart. Okay. I knew there'd be tartan. I knew there'd be tartan somewhere, whereas this is like fox hunty stuff. I don't know if that's Christmas or not. See if there's a better, again, knickknacks. I don't think these knickknacks are quite the same as the teddy bear. Little bit of a slightly different. Oh yeah, Santa guy. I'm just lazy. This is easy. Nutcrackers. Yep, the girl forgot. She showed nutcrackers, I think, in the thing, but she didn't list them in that one list of all the knickknacks I was pointing out. So obviously Santas, elves, knickknacks, paddywhacks, dogs with bones. Okay, we're definitely not seeing tartan again in this particular book. That's just table serving suggestion ideas. Again, how much this has to do with Ralph Lauren. Oh, and then we got New Year's. La-di-da. Not quite what I was looking for. I was hoping to find a slightly better tartan example without running to the. And then this book is like trees and wreaths and stuff. Like I said, I kind of hate wreaths and all that stuff. This one, they're going with more of a modern, fancy gold thing, which I think you could do Ralph Lauren with some of this. I've never shopped with any of these people. I'm not, that worried about it. I'm not going to go into all of it. Anywho, but so the military usage, this will mean a lot more in Canada and UK than it does in the States. So likely would not be much of a consideration for Ralph Lauren or other US companies when they were marketing. And then I made the joke, is MacLeod of Lewis cozy enough? Because she was saying tartan is automatically cozy. Those of you who don't know the joke. That tartan is yellow, not red. Well, it has red in it, but this is what I was kind of talking about when I was talking about the tinsel thing. I can't see what I'm doing here. Except this is strings of pearls or whatever instead. But if it's done kind of a certain way, it achieves the effect. And if it's just thrown on glops and stuff. Here's one where they're using blue. So I guess that's what some of these decorators are talking about. But this is not, I think, what Ralph Lauren had in mind. Or Scotland, since we're technically not on really Ralph Lauren anymore. I'm just showing pictures out of a catalog that make it a little more visually interesting than my face. Oh, here we go. Stars and angels. That's what I was talking about earlier. We never had a really proper star for a long time. We had a cardboard star that I decorated because we couldn't find the other star. Then when we found the other star, my insignificant little crap cardboard star didn't get to stay a family tradition. It got thrown back in the box and forgotten forever. This one lights up. It's prettier. Whatever. So yeah, wreaths. Again, you can buy wreaths rather than make your own. But if you have a really specific idea in mind, then spending however much money on a wreath, I guess, will be antithetical to your vision. Again, I'm looking for something completely else and just showing pages from this book because why not? Whatever. Maybe I'll get in trouble on YouTube. I don't know how that works. Here are some trees that aren't painted pink. How much of these look Scottish? I don't know. I don't think Scottish trees look that much different than US trees, although I had gotten a lot of people saying in videos that I had seen a couple years ago about more along the lines that Hogmanay was the bigger celebration in Scotland than even Christmas. And here's some more trees just to finish out this book real fast. Okay. There's no tartan in here. So this is clothing. Probably not tartan clothing. I could run to the other room and grab the things. If anybody was really confused. So, sorry, that was kind of a weird whirlwind of nonsense, but whatever, that's just their catalog. And then she had said stuff, it's similar to the other knickknacks and things list, but maybe not quite as comprehensive. But one of the things she had talked about was like stag antlers and that kind of thing. And I keep meaning to get some stag antlers and that kind of thing. Decorate more. I had that one deer thing that's out in the garage again that I decorated Mr. Guy with that hanging off of it or whatever. So, okay, we're not at part 3 yet. Let me go there real quick. Okay, I don't have the blanket as handy as I thought, but it doesn't matter. And I don't have MacLeod of Lewis at all. But for those of you who don't know, this is the Buchanan one. So you'll see it fairly often. This, of course, is the LL Bean. Kind of ancient version. So the red's a little bit more. This one's the red's still kind of red, but it's supposed to be kind of faded. But in the actual ancient, it's even more orange than this. Whereas in the modern version, the blue is much more navy and still blends into the green a reasonable bit, but both the green and the blue will be darker and the yellow will be less kind of faded and muted out, even more bold of a yellow than that. This, of course, is just an LL Bean shirt that's called a Scottish tartan, but what family or clan this could be, I don't know. This is the weathered version of the Stuart, where they've replaced the green with the brown, or some of the other squares slightly changed from, yeah, this is kind of a faded one too, but a scarf where there's red in the boxes instead of brown in the boxes. So they've tweaked it slightly to make this, but that's the basic set kind of idea. And so this being the royal-ish, even though this is a fashion version made by whoever. I don't know where I got this. Oh, UK company, but not a Scottish mill. Whereas this is the dress Stuart-ish that I was talking about with the white backing instead of the red or gray or brown or some of the other colors you can see. But I think this is also military use. So this is supposed to be the ancient, or sorry, the weathered version of this. So we've replaced the bright blue, we've replaced the bright green, we've replaced the yellow. Well, the yellow is still there, it's just kind of gold. They've made it a gold band, so it really blends in with the black a lot more, but it is there. And the blue, there is a blue there. You can barely see it. Yeah, the blue is there, and the yellow is gold. There we go. You can see those colors pop a little better. So that's, but both of those are technically military. This, of course, on the other hand, is just a random tartan pattern that they made similar to Stuart, but with yellow backing instead of, but the boxes and the lines are not in the exact same order as the actual Stuart. But so when you're hunting down shirts, you're maybe likely to find some of the red Stuart ones, but you're more likely to find a lot of the black watch ones, because pajamas and old robes and all that kind of thing, black watch is very common to find. So I think that's why if you're on a budget and you're being lazy, that would still be a go-to choice. This was not the tartan I wanted, but this is a MacDonnell dress modern, so this is close. It has more blue in it than the other one that I was going to get that was out of stock. So last year they had a sale, and I got this one. It's still Christmassy enough, but I wasn't trying to get Stuart because I already have the other Stuart. I was trying to get some other clan that looks even more Christmassy with less blue in it, basically. And I don't recall which one it was. I don't know, McNabb or something. I don't know, I have to go back through all my notes to find that out. And since I already have that scarf that I haven't even used yet, it hasn't been a priority. Okay, so sorry about that little detour and whatnot. So now we have steadily moved to part 3. Look at us go, even though, like I said, I'm not giving necessarily all the exact information. Like I said, I'm not going point for point. If you're really, really interested in a Ralph Lauren Christmas, I think you're already kind of looking more in that direction than this video. Like I said, this is more of a rebuttal than an actual how to make your house look exactly like Ralph Lauren. Well, I don't know. Does the what was their name? Gumps or Balsam Hill book suit your needs, you know, maybe. Or L.L. Bean or whoever else. So when we came to English country decoration, the buzzword in there somewhere was casual sophistication / rustic elegance. Those were some bandied about concepts, which, yeah, I agree with, although, you know, you wouldn't, you know, guess it necessarily from looking at this crap, but I just redid this room because I was kind of bored of the old stuff, and I want to, you know, make it slightly more interesting for you viewers when I run out of the room for a minute and a half. Whatever. So in this case, though, we're going to deviate slightly from, you know, just the holidays. Here we're talking about architecture, but we're, you know, also talking about color palettes, textures, and patterns. And she was saying that it's not wall-to-wall florals as many people think. It can be more subtle. Your choice of furniture, your choice of lighting, your decor, even your landscaping and good gardening, and then back inside your artwork and your books. So again, you're going to want to decorate less with trade paperback kind of books and more with leather-bound books if you can find them or afford them. I don't have leather-bound books, but I do have some cloth-bound ones that probably used to have paper slip covers. That a little bit of dust. I need to finish cleaning, but so these can look a little closer, but I'm one of those, you know, guy. I technically hate people who use books as decorations, but on the other hand, books like this that they don't have a ton of value, but they have some value. I don't necessarily want to read them and ruin them, or not extensively. So if I know it's a book I'm going to want to use over and over as some kind of reference guide or just a favorite go-to read book, like a, you know, collection of poems or something, I would rather have a trade paperback and then keep this on the shelf just to feel, you know, smart or snobby or whatever. But yeah, no leather ones here. That sounds expensive. Just before we get into the meat of the heart of the thing, and this is what I bring up in almost every decor video I do, most newer U.S. homes are now built with horrible open concept layouts. They're a nightmare. The layout is a nightmare. You don't have distinct rooms, so it's really hard to decorate one space. Sometimes you want to over decorate the space to delineate it from that other space, but then it can get kind of thematic-y and what, costumey, I guess. What do you call that? What, you know, I mean, like I said, I like those elements. I like the nautical thing. I like the globe thing, you know, but you can't have too much of it or it looks like a children's bedroom, you know, that kind of thing. And again, real antiques are very expensive and not always practical. So yeah, instead of an easily defined rectangle space like the one I'm sitting in with separating walls, you know, from the next room with the sweaters, half the time I don't know where the one room starts and the other one ends. You know, whereas in the, you know, the English country, it's a little bit more easy to work with. What I was going to mention in the last video that I watched of hers about the furniture placement and the size of the scale of the furniture and all that, etc. And so often we have no cozy study reading room because that's just a nook in the living room now, you know, smushed in between the TV and the dining room table, or the dining table if you don't even have a dining room, because the kitchen and the dining room are the same room, but they're also the living room. Yeah. If you're lucky, it can be between the TV and the fake fireplace, that which has no proper brick, hath no proper brick nor wood mantle, but some gas flame behind a glass partition, etc. Yeah. So how you decorate that exactly, rather than just covering it up with tinfoil or something and pretending it isn't there. I could go on and on about that type of room, but also the odd shape of the rooms. designed now, not exactly weird angles necessarily, but just extra wasted space a lot of the time that's hard to fill. Again, because you don't know which space it belongs to, and you want to be able to use it for storage if possible, with any kind of standing shelf, just to throw stuff on it, not even curated knickknacks or whatever, like a larger bookshelf might hold. Sorry. So the functional part of the room ends up, all cramped anyway, because you're trying to cram everything related to, the kitchen into the kitchen, and your hall closet that's supposed to be your coat rack is now your pantry. I don't know. So a lot of the houses being built now have over big rooms and too much closet space and 3 bathrooms and extra things and this and that. They have an abundance of cupboards, whereas the smaller ones, everything's just sort of rotating around the bathroom, and the bathroom doesn't even have a ventilation window. So it's kind of luck of the draw. Kind of depends on where you're moving, where how recently it was built. Of course, I know that traditionally a true cottage might only be 1 room, because you have your fireplace is your kitchen, and your heating and your TV, and 100 years ago. But this is not the typical country house that's more a proper home than just a shack now. I think we all kind of understand that the 20th century happened, and even most of the poor Irish people moved out of their shacks and into the they're still technically cottages, but not quite bungalows, but not quite what Americans would call a starter house-ish, although kind of 2-3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. A kitchen area, but maybe not a dining area, but not quite as open concept and studio feel as a lot of, like I said, the starter houses. So we're kind of splitting hairs maybe a little, but again, not a 1-room shack, not a bachelor pad, So herein we should have a parlor that's not part of the kitchen, etc., and separate bedrooms, even if the master bedroom is about the same size as the others, not like the big showy ones with the sunken tub and the separate shower and all that. Jacuzzi and a bidet. Who knows? I don't know if more people now are interested in Hobbit stuff. Oh, there's a rebuttal to her post. I don't know if more people now are interested in Hobbit stuff or Downton Abbey. This might just be a YouTube bias, because I think when I see YouTube videos, I'm seeing a lot more Hobbit stuff. Whereas I think if we're actually decorating, Downton Abbey is more what they're reaching for. Not quite the best samples. The artwork she shows, like the one big dark gloomy piece in the bright room, or the odd colors one where I mostly like the dog, etc. Okay, I didn't copy that. I did, like I said, I copied this other. Oops, clicked on the wrong. I copied this other image, and this computer is terrible. So will I be able to find it? Yeah, here it is. This one showed two gents on horses hunting, I assume, or something in the snow. And then in the middle, there was just a centerpiece of a table, and then artwork back on the wall that you can't really see what the artwork is. It's too small. Landscapes, traditional countryside kind of stuff, and then 2 things that might be horses or tractors or boats or something. More landscapes on the other wall. One looks like it might be a village scene. The other, an open countryside. One is a pathway between 2 trees. The other one is trees to the side and a hill. So yeah, art, we're looking for old portraits, that look old, like, again, 16 or 1800s. Equestrian photos of horses. And here, this one does have a poinsettia. I forgot to mention poinsettias earlier when the gal did her list. Although, I don't know if poinsettias are more or less popular than the previous list, but that should have been in part 2. Sorry about that. Well, if you made it this far, you're a trooper. And if you're reading that other list, You might have already commented if you ever watched this. Poinsettias, question mark? And I will say, yes, I talk about that in part 3 instead of part 2 where it belongs. Lucky you. You're smarter than me. Well, I had it written and I totally skipped it because I went back and forth with the other part of the notes. So I just defeated myself, even though it was pre-planned. So anyway, so yeah, the art. So yeah, the art she was talking about was correct, but the art she was showing wasn't matching what she was saying. So I guess it was just kind of a lazy search. I don't know if that was her fault or whoever edits those videos. I don't have an editor, so I'm not showing you any art. I'm showing you books and Charlie Brown, M&Ms, whatever. She was saying a lot of people really have been gravitating tourism-wise to the Cotswolds lately, and she wasn't sure why that place specifically when there's plenty of other nice places in England to visit. My answer was, I don't know why the Cotswolds, but Rick Steves did a travel video there many years ago, which still gets played in reruns here, but also more likely is because Ellen moved there. So that's my, again, rhetorical probability or plausibility. And she did comment that she agreed with that and thought Ellen might have a bit to do with it. Yep. Then this poem, give me a second and I'll read you. Neither English nor Scottish. I believe this is an Irish poem that, again, I did not write. 'Tis an old deserted homestead. Oh, this should be part 4. Let's start again. Part 4. Although technically it's part 3, but it has to be part 4 because it's, again, not English, it's Irish. But the photo accompanying the caption was an Irish cottage, but this poet, I don't know. I didn't look up his family history or anything. 'Tis an old deserted homestead on the outskirts of the town, where the roof is all moss-covered and the walls are tumbling down. But around that little cottage do my brightest memories cling, for 'twas there I spent the moments of my youth, life's happy spring. So thank you, Paul Lawrence Dunbar, 1872 to 1906. For that bit of inspiration, and those of us who have been to those cottages a bit less run down and condemned than that one, perhaps, can understand where you're coming from, although I didn't spend that much time in the dirt floor deal because it wasn't really habitable by 20th century standards anymore. Again, the 60s already went by and other houses got electricity even in rural places like Ireland. So anyway, I don't know if that was helpful in any manner at all whatsoever, but that was my hour of video. So I guess I'll stop now since miracle if anybody watches this at all. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments and I will try to answer them in a better manner than this, because again, like I said, stuff like poinsettias and stuff, I can remember that if I'm prompted, rather than, trying to be responsible for reading all of it correctly.